Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be looking at the astral plane. This is a plane of existence that is just beyond what many call the veil. The veil is something that we lose the ability to see through at a very, very young age. Society tells you there's no such thing as ghosts and monsters, so therefore you stop being able to see them. If a person gets told continuously that what they're seeing is not really there, then eventually they will believe that it's not really there. Especially when we're dealing with otherworldly creatures. The astral plane is the place that you go through after you die. When your spirit leaves your body, you go through there on your way to wherever you're going. The astral plane is a place that is derived of beings and creatures made up from human emotion, thoughts, dreams. As this video will describe, it will go into more detail. We're going to look at it and see if our experience with the astral plane and astral projection is the same as what they are giving as information. I am using my personal experiences behind a lot of this because I've been doing this for many decades. This is Anarchist Necromancer. I have studied magic and aliens and different religions for many decades. I have seen with my own eyes and heard many things that general humans would not experience. I have dipped my toes in the ponds of many different theories. I have seen and spoken to many different gods, many different deities, many different entities. I have been to the astral plane, the ethereal plane, the ethereal plane, limbo, many places throughout my years of life. This is my experience. We're looking at information that is on the internet about these different places and see how it compares to the reality. As for a good book, this is a very good book, and it gives you enough information on how to actually astral project and walk your way through the astral plane. It is a place of think it, hear it, see it, be it. So if it's in your imagination and you can think about it, it's a very good possibility that you can get it to happen. That is the benefit of the astral plane. This is not a plane that many people understand or know about or are told of. Throughout different religions, they leave this blank. They're not allowed to touch this area. This is more of a magic user, sorcerer, witches, occultist type thing. They understand it, they use it, they take advantage of it.
Have you ever felt like something was watching you in the middle of the night? A whisper without a voice. A still figure standing at the foot of your bed. What if I told you it wasn't a dream, but a visitation? Welcome once again to Esoteric Guardian. Today, we descend into a hidden dimension, an invisible realm that exists just beyond the physical world. A space inhabited by dreams, nightmares, spirits, and the darkest thought forms born of human emotion. The astral plane, described by mystics.
This is a very interesting place to go travel to if you have the ability. There's a lot of neat things that you can learn from in that area. There's also a lot of dangers. You need to be wary, you need to be cautious, and you need to be educated. Much research is needed before you go and play.
Occultists and seers throughout history, this ethereal domain is not only home to guiding and benevolent beings, but also to terrifying entities that stalk the shadows. Get ready, because we're about to uncover the most chilling creatures of this unseen world, revealing their origins, their true forms, how they interact with our reality, and how you can protect yourself from their influence.
Just because we do not have the ability to see past the veil and see what's going on because we were told that it doesn't exist, it's not real, therefore we lost the ability to see, does not mean that the creatures that are on the other side of the veil can't see across the veil, can't reach across the veil, can't go across the veil. This is a place where demonic possession comes into play. This is where the possessing demons come from. This is not a heaven or hell thing. This is an astral plane thing. You get a monster that's able to cross the veil, possess a human or an animal for a while, until they are exorcised. Yes, exorcisms work. Yes, exorcisms are real. Yes, there is a division of the Catholic Church in the Vatican that teaches exorcism. If it wasn't real, the Vatican wouldn't have a special department for it. Think about that.
In technical esoteric terms, the astral plane is a subtle dimension composed of highly malleable etheric matter which responds intensely to human emotions and thoughts. Referred to as the second sphere or astral world by occultists such as Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, and Dion Fortune. This plane exists.
I am a very large Aleister Crowley fan. I've got many books. I've read many of his books. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and comment down on the videos, because we're going to be looking into all kinds of different occult, religion, and alien-based topics. That's what this channel is about. It's what we're going to be looking at. Aliens are here. We need to be ready for them to be able to show themselves without the human species freaking out about it, because at this point, the majority of population would really freak out if aliens came and showed themselves. Plus, it would really destroy a lot of religious theories, so there's that too. You got all the religious people and all the anti-alien people and the science people saying, no, they don't exist. Well, when they show themselves, reality is going to hurt a lot of people's feelings.
Between the physical material world and higher spiritual realms, acting as both a bridge and an immediate reflection of the collective human unconscious. One of the defining features of the astral plane is the automatic formation of autonomous entities known as thought forms, created from intense emotional energy. These thought forms can gain independence.
That's the problem with the astral plane. You think it, it happens. Sometimes they don't go away. They manifest and stay.
Persist over time, and even interact with the mind and energy field of individuals who enter the astral via astral projection, lucid dreaming, or altered states of consciousness. According to prominent researchers like Charles Webster Leadbeater, Robert Monroe, and Israel Regardie, the lower regions of the astral plane, commonly referred to as the lower astral, are dense, negative zones inhabited by parasitic or predatory beings born from emotions such as fear, hatred, anxiety, and guilt. One of the most well-known and frightening examples is the dweller on the threshold, which we will explore later. In conclusion, the astral plane is not merely a metaphor or fantasy. It is a technical and real dimension thoroughly explored by renowned occultists, whose investigations reveal both its immense spiritual potential and its grave psychic dangers.
It's just one of those places. It's got a lot of good uses, and it's got a lot of bad uses, and a lot of bad things in it. So, yeah, be weary.
Particularly in its darkest corners. Since medieval times, the figures of the incubus and succubus have haunted the human imagination with dark, disturbing tales, deeply rooted in Christian demonology and the European occult tradition. Technically speaking, these beings are parasitic entities of the astral plane, energetic creatures that survive by feeding directly on human life force. They possess no physical bodies of their own, but exist on lower vibrational frequencies within the astral realm, especially drawn to individuals who are emotionally or psychologically vulnerable.
If you go there and you see something screwy and it makes you worry, don't go talk to it.
The incubus, male in nature, and the succubus, female, have the unsettling ability to take on deceptively attractive forms at first. They appear as ideal lovers, seductive and magnetic figures who infiltrate dreams.
Basic shapeshifters, like a lot of other entities in the astral plane, including yourself, shapeshifting is common.
Or even states of semi-consciousness, triggering intense and seemingly pleasurable sexual experiences.
Succubuses are claimed to be what give boys wet dreams. Incubuses are claimed to be what come and visit the girls at night. Each has a purpose. They have their own definitions and their own uses. We will get into those in a different video.
However, this seductive facade hides a terrifying truth. Their real form is grotesque and monstrous. Occultists like Helena Blavatsky, Eliphas Levi, and Cornelius Agrippa often describe them as beings with twisted faces, glowing malevolent eyes, dark bat-like wings, sharp teeth, and limbs ending in clawed fingers.
Pretty accurate.
Their nocturnal assaults are not mere erotic dreams, but deeply invasive encounters. Victims often wake up with very real physical symptoms: extreme exhaustion, unexplained pain, scratches or bruises on the body, signs of the entity's attempt to energetically anchor itself to the person's aura.
They feed from energy and the aura. So if they can attach themselves to you, they'll be feeding. Sometimes they don't attach. Sometimes they just kind of come and feed for a little bit and leave. Others will try and hook on and they will drain you completely, literally.
And drain as much vital energy as possible. But perhaps more disturbing than the immediate physical effects is the long-term psychological impact. The influence of incubi and succubi slowly corrupts the human mind, triggering uncontrolled sexual impulses, obsessive thoughts, and perverse tendencies that can destroy personal relationships and emotional balance.
That is absolute fact also. Most of these creatures will influence the mind to doubt things, question things, to suspect things. There's not a lot of positive reinforcement. Everything leads to doubt and self-destruction. None of these creatures are good overall. Some of them are kind of useful, but mostly destructive.
Modern occult researchers like Dion Fortune and Robert Bruce emphasize that these entities cannot attack arbitrarily. They need a weakness, an energetic opening within the human psyche. Depression, fear, substance abuse, or obsessive attachment to sexual fantasies all create fertile ground for these astral parasites. Therefore, protection against incubi and succubi has traditionally focused on maintaining strict emotional and mental purity. Recommended techniques include spiritual practices such as focused meditation, the conscious use of sacred symbols like crosses, protective pentagrams, or blessed talismans.
Now, this does take away from a series of magic called sex magic. While what he just listed is problematic and does have issues tied to it, it is also a natural part of being human. Not all humans, but a lot of them at least have a small piece of one of those. Absolutely pure people like nuns and monks and people that try their best to be as, just because you try your hardest to be as pure as you can be does not mean thoughts will not bubble up into your head that you didn't think would come up there. Sometimes it happens. The influence of negative energies is always there. Protecting yourself from it and being mindful of it is the only thing that you can really do to deal with it. If it's not something you can avoid, it's better to hit it head on and get past it. That way it cannot be used against you.
Along with personal strengthening through a balanced emotional life free from unhealthy sexual obsessions. By cultivating a stable and clear mind, one's aura is sealed, making it much harder for these entities to latch onto the human energy field. In short, while these astral predators represent a profoundly unsettling threat, they hold no real power over those who maintain strong emotional and spiritual discipline. The best defense lies in clear awareness.
These are some of the weakest of the weak ones, so we're starting with the weak ones to give you an idea. But after this, they are going to get stronger and stronger and a lot harder to resist.
Inner strength and recognizing the danger that lurks behind the seductive mask incubi and succubi use to draw their victims into degeneration. After descending into the disturbing realms of entities like incubi and succubi, we now turn to a far more unsettling and deeply personal being, the dweller on the threshold. This sinister entity, known to occultists and theosophists since the 19th century, particularly after author Edward Bulwer-Lytton popularized the concept in his novel Zanoni, 1842, symbolizes something far more terrifying than mere external demons. It represents the sum total of all the darkness buried within our soul, accumulated over multiple lifetimes. The dweller has no fixed form.
Multiple lifetimes. Now we're talking reincarnation. This is something else that we will be discussing on the channel. So hit that subscribe button and don't miss out. Really appreciate you people watching the video as far as you can. Helps the videos out. Comments are very appreciated.
Its most terrifying ability lies precisely in its capacity to morph into a shape that mirrors, with surgical precision, the most disturbing aspects of our psyche. Deep-rooted fears, unresolved guilt, buried remorse, and sins we have never dared to face. It is, in essence, a dark mirror that projects outward everything we desperately try to suppress.
This is where coping mechanisms in dealing with anxiety and stress comes in very, very critically. If you're going to be playing with magic and otherworldly beings, you need to have a solid mindset. If you are not 1,000,000% positive, secure, and fixed on your mindset, and there is any doubt whatsoever, it becomes super dangerous and not advised to do.
Influential occultists like Alice Bailey expanded on this concept, describing it as a kind of astral double, a grotesque projection of our lowest self, lurking maliciously at the threshold between spiritual ignorance and inner awakening. Those who have had the misfortune, or perhaps the privilege, of confronting the dweller speak of harrowing and deeply disturbing experiences.
I've dealt with him briefly, very briefly. I was accepting of what I saw because I know myself and I know how I am, and I accept myself. I don't fight it.
Deep meditative states, altered states of consciousness, or advanced astral projections, this being may manifest with chilling intensity. Esoteric and occult traditions recount initiates undergoing their most critical spiritual trials, assailed by living shadows that whisper cruel and haunting words, or by demon-like faces twisted by hatred and scorn.
It's very, very personal, very individual.
These encounters can be so intense that they push individuals to the brink of madness, as inner voices filled with self-hatred and despair attempt to annihilate every shred of faith, confidence and willpower.
Very much so. I always say we are our worst enemy. Nobody can criticize us worse than we can ourselves. We know what hits us the hardest. We are within our own mind, so we know what's there. This guy is right there next to us. He can use it against us. If you're not ready,
Dweller's goal is not to cause direct physical harm, but something far worse, to psychologically destroy the spiritual seeker. Its primary weapon is fear, visceral, ancient fear, triggered by the raw, immediate recognition of one's own dark nature made manifest. The confrontation becomes a final trial, a rite of passage that tests whether the soul is truly ready to ascend to higher spiritual realm.
this would be the gatekeeper to heaven, the one that judges you, the one they call the judgment person. This would be the one that you would talk to see if you were worthy to go into heaven, and he would be the one that would let you recount all of your life's past history.
But there is a way to overcome the dweller on the threshold, and it is as simple as it is difficult. To face it with complete moral honesty, genuine courage, and deep self-knowledge.
1,000,000%.
Occultists like Dion Fortune and Rudolf Steiner taught that only by recognizing, accepting, and consciously integrating one's own flaws and fears can the illusory power of the dweller begin to fade.
If you are a magic user, you are very aware of this. If you're one of the people that is just religious and you're curious about this stuff and you want to learn more, so that's why you're clicking on these videos, yes, self-recognition, self-analyzing is critical in the spiritual and magical world, because everything and anything can use your mind against you. If you have any doubt, any inconsistencies at all, they will take advantage of it. You just need a small crack, and they will get in there. This is how dangerous this can be.
When the individual finally understands that this creature is nothing more than an externalized manifestation of their own internal shadows, they gain the strength to speak the key phrase that ends the confrontation. You have no power over me.
That is key. And that is how you shut him down before he gets a chance to start. He comes at you, you throw that at him, done.
It is precisely by declaring these words with absolute firmness, not from fear, but from calm and lucid recognition, that the entity dissolves, revealing it was never anything more than the shadow of one's own fear projected onto the screen of astral reality. The dweller's true lesson is clear. External darkness is always a reflection of internal darkness, and only by conquering our personal demons can we finally step across the threshold into higher planes of consciousness.
Very important to note. Very important to note. Confidence is key. Not arrogance, confidence.
As we continue our descent into the horrors of the astral plane, we arrive at one of its most disturbing inhabitants. Astral vampires, beings especially terrifying for their ability to silently drain the vital energy of their victims. Though the term may sound fantastical, nearly every spiritual tradition around the world warns of similar entities. Parasitic specters that feed on human life force, attacking primarily during sleep or in moments of emotional and physical vulnerability. These entities are far from mere myth.
These things are everywhere and anywhere. It's not like they just come wandering around in the astral plane. These beings are everywhere. They know when you're sleeping, and they know what weaknesses to take advantage of to get in.
They have been vividly described by occultists and researchers such as Helena Blavatsky, Franz Hartmann, and Dion Fortune, who referred to them as genuine, invisible thieves of life. According to their investigations, there are two main types of astral vampires. The first consists of degenerated human souls, individuals who, after a life marked by extreme malice, addiction, or destruction, become trapped in the astral plane after death. Unable to ascend to higher planes, they remain desperately earthbound, driven by a relentless hunger for vital energy that they can no longer generate on their own.
These are the sad souls that do not believe in heaven or hell. They do not believe in an afterlife. They have no idea of what happens after death. So once they die, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know where to go. They have no guidance. They get stuck. Everything needs energy to exist. Therefore, they become energy hungry because they start to dissipate. Not having a spiritual or religious foundation to have an idea of some kind of afterlife really does harmful things to a person after they die, because they don't go to their idea of heaven. They don't go to wherever they think they're supposed to go to. When you die, everything is possible. You can go anywhere. You have a tunnel with a light and a bunch of doors in the tunnel. You can pick any door. You don't have to. You can go to the light. Once you make it past the gatekeeper, everything is wonderful. It's all up to you. If you have no belief system, then you get stuck in the astral plane, or even worse, limbo, and you're done for eternity or until your soul dissipates.
The second group is even more unsettling. Beings that were never human, primordial shadows that have always existed in the dim corners of the astral world. Often described as vaporous silhouettes, dark specters, or amorphous clouds, these entities tend to gather in places where human energy is released in abundance.
These are not the shadow beasts. These are cloud beasts in a weird sense. They don't look like shadow. They're more transparent.
Hospitals, cemeteries, sites of mass tragedy, or homes marked by prolonged suffering. Occultists from the early 20th century, like the renowned theosophist Charles Leadbeater, identified them as highly sensitive to human fear, sadness, and despair.
When we lost our dog, these beings started showing up around the house. Actually, a lot did. But these in particular, because of the amount of sorrow that was around the house at that point in time. Sorrow is huge energy. Everything can tell.
Emotions upon which they feed voraciously. As for their appearance, those who have encountered these astral vampires describe a variety of disturbing forms. Black shadows silently sliding along room corners, or cadaverous, spectral figures with glowing eyes,
yes,
watching the sleeping from the foot of the bed.
The shadows I've seen as other things. That's why I said these aren't technically the shadow creatures, but they can, I guess, look like shadows. This is where experience versus the internet comes in play. Is he being 100% truthful? Where did he get his information from?
Many victims report waking up suddenly in a state of overwhelming exhaustion, as if their life force had been drained. These attacks are often accompanied by recurring nightmares, sleep paralysis, or the infamous sensation of a heavy, invisible presence pressing on the chest.
That's the whole thing, sleep paralysis. You can't move while they're feeding. You can't do anything once they get in there. If you start moving and start waking up, you can get away from it. But you've got to be able to understand what's going on in order to battle it.
The classic experience of a nocturnal visitor. But the effects of these entities go beyond temporary fatigue. Their prolonged influence can lead to severe physical and emotional deterioration. Chronic fatigue, unexplained depression, persistent anxiety, and even undiagnosed physical ailments may be signs of ongoing astral vampire attacks. To protect against these energy thieves, esoteric tradition emphasizes maintaining a high spiritual vibration and a strong, luminous aura.
That's hard to do if you've got depressive syndrome. These guys, if you've got mental illnesses, you're like a sitting duck. There's not a whole lot you can do to protect against them. It does make me curious about my recent bouts of really, really tired, no energy, and depression.
Experienced occultists regularly recommend specific energy hygiene practices, meditations with visualizations of protective white or golden light surrounding the entire body, cleansing rituals using incense like myrrh or copal, and protective crystals such as black onyx or tourmaline.
Haven't done that.
Some, like Dion Fortune, stress that the ultimate key to protection lies in cultivating inner spiritual strength and emotional peace. A strong, positive aura becomes literally toxic to these entities.
And that right there is the key. If you can do that and manage that, you'll be good. Getting to that point, on the other hand, is not so easy.
Who prefer fearful and emotionally vulnerable targets. Ultimately, the existence of astral vampires serves as a powerful reminder.
A broken human is a lot easier to get into than one that is not broken. Pretty simple. If there's cracks, they're going in.
We are surrounded by invisible forces, and our spiritual and emotional well-being depends greatly on our ability to consciously fortify and protect our vital energy. Staying aware, balanced, and luminous is the ultimate defense against these dark predators of the astral realm. After exploring astral vampires and their relentless pursuit of human life force, we now delve into a far more modern, yet equally terrifying phenomenon: the shadow people. These figures have surged into the collective imagination since the late 20th century, and far from being mere nocturnal hallucinations, their recurring presence in independent testimonies and anomalous behavior have made them one of the greatest mysteries of the contemporary astral plane.
I understand the astral plane develops and evolves as time goes on, and new creatures can absolutely be formed because of imagination and emotion of humans. And yes, in the last 100 years, the population of the planet has exploded. So I guess, yes, new beings can come from the woodwork, but it makes me wonder how long they've been sitting in the shadows waiting also. Or if this is something that is just absolutely new, that was just recently created. Just like how there's now branches of Satanism, and you don't just have one type of satanic person anymore. There's branches, and I mean, this stuff's getting ridiculous as to how broken up these things are nowadays. But the broken up is what's causing the emergence of new creatures.
Described as completely black humanoid silhouettes, faceless and featureless, shadow people usually appear during moments of psychic vulnerability, sleep paralysis, transitions between wakefulness and deep sleep, or even during periods of depression or anxiety. The most commonly reported form is that of a tall, slender figure with straight shoulders and a rigid posture. However, more sinister variants exist, such as the infamous Hat Man, a shadow being wearing a wide-brimmed hat, who, for reasons unknown, provokes an even deeper and more primal terror. In 2014, a woman from Krakow, Poland, shared a chilling report online. For over a month, she saw a dark figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat, standing motionless by her bedroom door, always at exactly 3:33 a.m.
There are things called witching hours for a reason. Certain times have keys to different portals and dimensions and beings. Certain times will have higher activities of spiritual beings than other times. This is basic occult knowledge.
Described it as perfectly black, like it absorbed the light around it, and claimed that every time it appeared, she was overcome with total paralysis and a choking pressure on her chest. Doctors found nothing wrong. But the most disturbing detail came later. Her younger sister, sleeping in the room next door, began having identical experiences. Same time, same figure, same silence. What's most disturbing is their behavior. They do not...
Now, was it a mirror of that creature, or was it a different creature altogether? You don't know that either. Can these actually mirror themselves? Need more information.
Speak, they do not move conventionally, they simply watch. Often from a doorway, a dark corner, or even standing right beside the bed. Witnesses report a sudden, overwhelming, and utterly irrational sense of absolute panic. There is no noise, no direct physical aggression, yet the atmosphere surrounding them seems to freeze everything in place. It's believed that this terror is not a side effect, but their primary source of nourishment. Entities that feed not on blood or desire, but on pure, distilled fear. The nature of shadow people remains hotly debated in esoteric circles. Some believe they are degenerated astral forms, conscious residues born from collective human suffering.
That's a good point.
Others suggest they are interdimensional observers, emotionless onlookers who slip into the astral realm during brief moments when the mind and body fall out of sync.
That could be a very interesting way to think about it. If it's an interdimensional observer and it's not harming anybody, it's just sitting there watching, okay, is it alien-based? Is it God-based? Is it creature-based? Is it a messenger? Kind of like a mobile camera. Many magic users have used birds to be their eyes in the past. This could have a shadow being its eyes. More information is needed. We will be digging into these in a lot more detail in the future.
Still others connect them to the dweller on the threshold, but in a collective form, non-personal shadows reflecting humanity's universal fear of the unknown. What is certain is that, despite their apparent passivity, many feel these beings have hidden intentions. In some accounts, the shadow person leans in, tilts its head, or suddenly launches itself toward the observer before vanishing. In other cases, they appear repeatedly.
How many people have jumped out at their brother, sister, significant other and went rah for no reason, just because you were bored? You wanted to give them a little startle. I mean, these things have senses of humor also. It may not line up with human senses of humor, but sure, okay, you saw me, do you really see me? We're going to give you a quick little rah before we leave. I mean, why not? Sure.
As if they've marked certain individuals, those more spiritually open or sensitive.
Gotcha.
And in more extreme situations, psychological after effects are reported. Paranoia, recurring night terrors, and even the sensation of being watched during the day.
Those are actually PTSD effects of something breaking your idea of the norm. If you've never seen one of these or never encountered one of these before, and all of a sudden it pops up, your whole reality is now opened up and chained. because you have now experienced something that most people will not experience. So yes, you're going to lose sleep. You're going to have nightmares. Some will get PTSD from this because it's scary. Very simple.
Protection against these entities doesn't lie in direct combat, but rather in reinforcing one's inner light. Literally, turning on a light can cause them to vanish, interpreted by many as proof of their connection to lower planes where emotional darkness dominates. On a spiritual...
It takes a lot of energy to exist in the light. Dark is a lot easier to manipulate and maneuver around. Pretty simple.
Level, this light translates to a firm mind, free of fear or existential emptiness. Traditional protective tools also prove useful. Crystals like black obsidian or tourmaline, purifying incenses such as copal or palo santo, and symbols of personal or spiritual power, depending on the practitioner's tradition. More than monsters, shadow people appear to be dark mirrors, living reflections.
Did you notice how he said, depending on the practitioner's position? In other words, depending upon what you believe. We don't care what you believe, and we don't care how you believe. This is how to deal with this entity that exists, regardless of if you believe. I like that. That is a very good way to put that. One of those, just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not there.
Of the human existential dread of the invisible. They don't attack in the physical sense, but their mere presence can destabilize the psyche. To understand them, to acknowledge them, and to stand firm in the face of their frozen silence may be the first step to dissolving their power over us. In the astral world, fear opens doors, but willpower slams them shut.
Very true.
Within the occult universe, few entities are as insidious as astral larvae. They are not demons or spirits in the traditional sense, but rather living waste. Fragments of dense, degenerated human emotions such as hatred, jealousy, repressed lust, or vengeance, that, when fed with enough intensity and repetition, detach from the human energy field and take on autonomous form in the lower astral plane.
Okay.
These creatures, described in the writings of authors like Franz Barden and Dion Fortune, do not possess consciousness in the human sense, but they do have a clear purpose: to feed. They attach themselves to the aura of emotionally unstable or spiritually weakened individuals, acting like energetic ticks. Small and almost invisible at first, they settle on the edges of the auric field and begin draining vitality, feeding on negative thoughts, inner turmoil, or self-destructive habits. Though their size is often described as tiny, dark masses, etheric worms, or crawling stains, their cumulative effect can be devastating. Over time,
the loss of energy affects a human in so many different ways. If something is draining your aura, it's going to test your mentality, and it's going to test your physical ability and endurance. If you don't have a lot of energy to spare to begin with, they will drain you very quickly. If you're a very positive person that has an overflowing bank of energy that has just had a slight bad day and a crack formed, and something like this got in there, then they can feed for a very long time before anybody even realizes there's a problem.
The affected person may begin to feel inexplicably exhausted, plagued by intrusive thoughts, overcome by emotions that don't feel like their own, or even driven by self-destructive impulses with no apparent cause.
Yes, depression is a horrible, horrible, horrible problem.
In extreme cases, the larvae multiply, forming psychic swarms that envelop the victim entirely, pushing them to the brink of madness, illness, or emotional collapse.
That would be one of those happy-go-lucky people that had a horrible break, and one of those got in there. They would have enough energy to sprout more. That's extremely scary.
Occult teachings also warn that certain locations can become infested with these entities. Homes where prolonged suffering has occurred, hospitals, prisons, or even places where black magic or failed rituals have been performed.
You seeing patterns in any of this stuff?
There, the larvae remain anchored, lying in wait for the next vulnerable visitor to attach to. Protecting oneself from these forms of astral life requires rigorous energetic hygiene, salt baths, purifying smudges, visualizations of fire or cleansing light, and most importantly, mental discipline. Obsessive thinking.
Quite a few things I don't have. I will admit it though, because I understand there are areas that need to be worked on.
And uncontrolled emotions are like fresh meat to these invisible parasites. If one manages to elevate their emotional frequency, cultivating calm, clarity, and purpose, the larvae find nothing to feed on, and they detach on their own, vanishing like smoke without substance.
Bye-bye!
At their core, astral larvae remind us that the astral plane is not only inhabited by conscious horrors, but also by the waste products of the human soul.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, what destroys us most is not an external demon, but a rotting emotion we failed to let go of.
Again, we are our worst nightmares.
After traversing the darkest regions of the astral plane, one thing becomes clear. The truly terrifying is not what we see with physical eyes, but what lurks in the unlit corners of our own consciousness. The astral is not a place out there. It is a vibrational reflection of all that we are, all that we repress, all that we project. It is a multi-dimensional mirror where emotions take shape, thoughts become entities, and willpower is the only true compass. Incubi and succubi, energy vampires, parasitic larvae, the dweller on the threshold, all of them represent more than just monsters. They are living symbols of the dangers that arise when we neglect our impulses, traumas, and unresolved desires. Some feed on lust, others on fear, others on despair.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. We run unchecked, bad things happen. We don't get better, we get worse. We allow for behaviors to happen that we wouldn't typically happen because they're the new norm. There's nothing more apparent than the past 10 years. I mean, yeah, the past 10 years have been absolutely horrifying, and they're only getting worse. The new norms are not norms that should be in existence at all. They should stay in the shadows, be quiet, not seen, not heard. My grandparents used to tell me, be seen and not heard, don't talk unless talked to. I understand that. If you bring attention to yourself, sometimes the attention that you get is not the attention that you wanted.
But they all have one thing in common. They only exist where unconsciousness dwells. Knowledge is your shield, and conscious awareness your sword. In the esoteric arts, understanding the invisible map that surrounds us is the first step toward freedom. Because the astral plane does not forgive ignorance.
No.
But it respects the one who seeks,
Yes.
who questions, who
Yes.
shines from within.
Yes. The astral plane is a very good place for education if you want to learn really neat, out-of-the-box things. It brings you to places that you've never been. It teaches you things. There are beings in there that will absolutely help educate you and bring you to higher mental abilities, mental states, physical abilities, physical states. There's so many benefits of being able to go there, but you need to be careful, you need to be prepared, and you need to be ready for anything that comes at you. Because in the physical realm, we're somewhat okay, safe. They have to look for cracks to get in. When we step into their world, all bets are off, and you better know what you're doing. So make sure you do your research, make sure you go in there fully educated and ready to learn that what you thought was real is only a speck of what reality really is. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Be good to one another.